What's going on, guys? This is Greg, and I want to talk to you about ham radios and why they're important to have as a prepper, and if you're looking to get into prepping, why you want to get a ham radio. And I'm going to explain what they are, how they work, and why you need it, or why it's good to have one. And I'll share some of my personal experiences, things like that. And this is the first video in a series that I'm going to call the Prepping Basics series, which I'm basically going to talk about basic things that you should have. They could be gear, it could be principles. So it's not just going to be gear in this series. It's going to be principles, it's going to be different things. Not everything is going to cost you money, obviously. And prepping is more than just gear. It's a mentality, it's skills, it's principles. It's a lot of mental aspects. It's not just collecting food and water and guns and different types of exotic gear. It's a mentality. It's your mindset. So in this series, I'm just gonna do basic foundational elements of prepping. So if you're just looking to start, these are the things that you're gonna wanna have, or understand if it's like a principle. And if you're already an advanced prepper and you're seasoned and you know all these things already, then maybe you can just rewatch my videos, and you might learn something that you didn't think about. But this is just like a kind of an instructional video, I guess you could say. So today I'm going to talk about the ham radios. And so basically a ham radio is it's just a radio that transmits radio signals, and there's different frequencies. I'm not going to get too technical with it because you could spend hours talking about it. But basically a ham radio will enable you to do two things. One, it'll let you listen to different radio signals, in your area of operations, wherever you are, wherever the radio is. You can listen to different signals around your area, and ham radios can pick up a lot of the frequencies that police scanners and public safety agencies use, which makes them very handy because you can listen to public safety activity, and it can also pick up a whole lot more. So it has the same functionality as a scanner, but it also allows you to transmit, which a scanner does not allow you to do. A scanner, you can only listen, but a ham radio, you can transmit as well. Now, there's legal aspects to it. As of the date of filming this video, 2019, you need to have a license in order to transmit with a ham radio on amateur radio stations. Another word for ham radio is amateur radio. So what that is amateur radio stations are basically just stations that have radio equipment, and they broadcast from the station. Imagine like a regular radio station that you listen to in your car. It's pretty much this, very similar. It's just broadcasting on a different frequency, and those amateur radio frequencies, if you have a ham radio, you can call in and talk into the station, and you can communicate with other people that are within receiving distance of the amateur radio station, which is very handy, in an emergency situation. Because when, let's say, the cell phone towers go down, or power goes down or something like that, you can communicate through the amateur radio towers. And a lot of those amateur radio stations, they're hooked into like big communication towers, usually on the top of mountains, so they can transmit the signal a long distance. So there's people that you could talk to from 100 miles away or 50 miles away. It's an extremely useful tool. So we covered the fact that you can scan with it. You can listen to different frequencies. You can listen to public safety, police, fire, EMS, and depending on your radio, you can pick up other types of frequencies. You can pick up like FMRS and GMRS radios, which are like shortwave, walkie-talkie radios, or CB radios, things like that. So you can pick those up as well, which is, if you have a ham radio that can pick up on those, you can actually see my radios going off right now. This is my local sheriff's office, so I'm just listening to their dispatch right now, so I can hear all the comments that the dispatcher makes, and so this is just so this is just the dispatcher and the police communicating on this frequency. And so basically you have the public safety bands, which you can monitor public safety. You can also use them for air and marine communications. So you can pick up aircraft radio, you can pick up marine radio, which would be obviously like boats, and then aircraft, airplanes, airport traffic. And again, this is where a ham radio is very multifunctional. You can have one and use it to transmit distress signals on certain frequencies. There's there's a frequency for in the marine and in the aircraft bands that you can transmit distress signals on. So if you're in a bad scenario and you're on a plane or in the water, you can use a ham radio to transmit a distress call. You can listen to Coast Guard. You can listen to shortwave radio emissions, like I mentioned, which could be like your, walkie-talkies, things like that. You can pick up AM and FM radio, which is very useful in a disaster. If you need to listen to the news or get instructions, whatever. You can also pick up the NOAA. NOAA has a weather radio where they transmit weather information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's constantly on. So as long as the power is on, you can listen to the NOAA weather radio. And so we covered the scanning portion of it, and transmission. And this is where, for prepping, it's important. It's good to have with you, and first of all, ham radios, if you get a portable one like this, like these guys here, these are very lightweight. These are, the same weight as like a walkie-talkie, shortwave radio walkie-talkie, FMRS or something like that. These are half a pound maybe. So you can easily fit this in your, go bag, in your bug out bag, your get home bag, in your pocket, your work bag. You can carry it with you, and it doesn't take up a lot of room. It's lightweight, but it's a very powerful tool. This is lightweight and doesn't take up a lot of room, but it has a lot of features, because it's going to enable you to listen to different frequencies and radio signals. Like I mentioned, shortwave radios, AM, FM, the NOAA weather alerts, so you can listen to weather. You can monitor air and marine radio signals, and you can transmit distress calls on them. You can monitor public safety, which is very good if there's like a terrorist attack or some type of natural disaster. And I've personally used my ham radios almost daily. I sometimes I'll just leave them on in the background and just listen to the local sheriff's dispatch, so I can kind of understand what's going on around the area, what kind of crimes there are, because these are things that you won't understand if they're not going to post all these things in the local paper, but if you listen to the scanner, you can pick up a lot of the dispatches that don't make it to the newspapers, and it'll kind of give you an understanding of what the crime is like around the area that you're in. And this is good for traveling as well. If you're traveling, you should bring one with you, because you can monitor the radio signals in the area and scan for public safety frequencies, and you can listen to any crimes or any situations that are developing around you that you wouldn't otherwise get an alert for on your phone or something like that. And that's where it's really handy to have, because in a disaster, you'll get that inside information with the scanner. So like, for example, when there's storms, I always listen to my radio, and I listen to the local sheriff's dispatch, so I can see where the trees are down, where the power lines are down. And these are things that you wouldn't really know, just by going on the internet. And this gives you some knowledge of, what's going on around you, and what the recovery efforts are like, and what the response is like by authorities. So it's good to have. If, let's say, you live in a city, and there's some type of terrorist attack, you can monitor the public safety frequencies, and you can see what the extent of the damage is, and what kind of response efforts they're making, and you can kind of gather a lot of intelligence that other people probably won't have, and it'll give you an advantage in terms of getting away safely and avoiding certain areas that may be dangerous or clogged up with traffic, or whatever the situation is, blocked by downed trees or something like that. So you can monitor the frequencies, and then you can also transmit. And going back to what I said earlier about transmitting, that you need a license, that's only true if during rule of law, like right now, or in non-emergency situations, you need a license. But if there's an emergency situation, FCC says it's okay to use the ham radio to transmit, to use like your amateur radio frequencies and so on. So you just have to be careful you're not broadcasting on your local, police frequencies, because you can get in trouble for that, and obviously you're gonna interrupt their ability to use the radio frequency for public safety. But if there's an emergency, and let's say it's a large scale disaster, and there's no power, and something like 9/11, for example, you can communicate with other people, or Hurricane Katrina, you can communicate with other people on the amateur radio stations, and talk to them. You can gather information, intelligence, things like that. Now, if we're talking about like a prolonged SHTF situation, having a ham radio is good to have, because you can always use it to communicate with other people, as long as you're on the same frequency. Communications is very important, and I think it's a very underestimated part of prepping. Everybody focuses on like the food storage and guns and ammo and stuff like that, but communications is really a good thing to have, so you can understand what's going on around you, and so you can communicate with other people, and get in touch with survivors, and get in touch with other people around you, and because we're all in this together. In a disaster, you're in the same situation as other people are. So when you communicate with other people, it helps you to learn things, and understand what's going on, and share information, things like that. So that's why ham radios are a basic item for prepping, and a lot of them are not too expensive. The one you see on the left here is a Baofeng. This one you can buy for like, maybe 40 bucks. Um, and you can buy this for like 40 bucks, and it comes with a charger. Most of these have like a belt clip and a lanyard. These are very well known by preppers, Baofeng. This is the UV5R. I'm gonna do separate videos reviewing the radio itself, and I have to say that I've had this radio probably for like a few years now, and I've haven't had any issues with it. Now I obviously haven't dropped it in water, or I've taken pretty good care of it, but for 40 bucks, it's a no-brainer to have one of these, and you should give one to everybody in your family. And you could even, going back to the communication aspect, you can have one of these at home and give it to your spouse. You can, whatever, your family members, give one to your wife or your husband, and then keep one with you when you're at work. And then so when you're away from home, you can have a way of communicating if the cell towers go down, as long as you guys have a frequency that you can communicate on, and you set your radio to the same frequency, you can transmit and receive on and communicate with them. Typically that would be the amateur radio stations in your area. Have your spouse, for example, keep a list of frequencies at the house, and understand which frequencies that they can transmit on, and this way, if there's an emergency, you guys both agree to transmit on the same frequency, and then this way you can communicate with them. If, let's say, like in my situation, I work like 60 miles from home, so if something were to happen to me and cell towers go down and I have no access to phones, with the ham radio, I could communicate with my fiance and, tell her that I'm okay and everything's okay, and, whatever. But, if I'm just relying on my cell phone, and, the thing is with cell phones is when there's a disaster, everybody wants to use their cell phone, and believe it or not, the cell towers can get congested and they can't process all those calls and all the text messages. It's just like anything else. There's a limited bandwidth. It's just like if you have a lot of people sharing the same internet connection. So you can't just rely on your cell phone all the time and expect that it's always going to be there. And obviously landlines don't exist anymore. There's no more payphones. I barely see payphones anymore. Landlines are non-existent. People just use cell phones nowadays. And so if you're in a situation where you're far away from home, it's good to have a ham radio and have another one at home that your spouse can use, or your family members, so you guys can communicate. And then obviously you can use it for scanning. And like I said, if it's a prolonged SHTF situation, you can use the radio to communicate with other survivors. You can monitor the frequencies around you, and because a ham radio can pick up so many different frequencies, it's a very versatile and powerful tool, and it's lightweight and compact, so it's really a no-brainer. And then obviously this isn't just for like total grid down situation, but even just for like personal emergencies. If, let's say, you're boating and you get into an emergency, you can use your ham radio to make a distress call. You can also use it, like I said, for amateur radio, and then you can monitor the public safety. So if there's storms around, or you can kind of understand what the crime is like in your area. It's good to have that inside knowledge of your local surroundings. So, these are just two radios that I have. One is the Yaesu. This is a higher end radio. This one is a submersible VX6R. It's a submersible rugged radio. It can be submerged for up to 30 minutes. It's waterproof. And then this is the cheap Baofeng. So most of the time I use this one at home to monitor frequencies, and these are easily replaceable. And then this one I keep more for like my bug out bag and emergency stash, This is my go-to radio because this one's more rugged, and I obviously don't want to, you know, deplete the battery and wear out the battery life, you know, by using it at home. So I get the cheap ones to use at home, and these are easily replaceable because they're only like $40. So, but you know, you may want to pick some of these up soon before they ban them. There's already talk about Baofangs being, you know, banned from being sold, and so you want to pick some of these up before the government, you know, tries to take them away. Now also on these radios you can connect a microphone, you know, so if you're in like a bug out situation, you know, you can listen and transmit quietly. You know, you can connect like a headset, so you don't have to, like, you know, have the scanner running and it's going to make a ton of noise. You can have a little earpiece and a small microphone, and you can have it running in the background as you're moving through an area, so you're not making a ton of noise listening to it, you know. But you know, it's definitely good to have because, like I said, it combines a scanner into a long distance radio. So it's really just a no-brainer for survival, and also for survival too. You should keep one. You know, if you're a hunter, an outdoorsman, it's good to have one. You know, because if there's no cell towers, you can always get some signal with this. You know, so a ham radio is one of the basics for prepping, and you can also get base stations as well, you know, but the base stations are more expensive and they're harder to configure, and you know, you need to have special antennas and power supplies. Everything has to be configured properly. If you don't have the technical knowledge and the time, then it's not a good idea. But you know, any one of these radios will work you know, almost just as good. You know, so the recommendation I have to you guys is to pick yourself up a small ham radio. Keep one in your bug out bag or your emergency bag, and then keep one at home as well, so you can listen to public safety and to give to your family members, so you guys can communicate with each other in a disaster. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to do detailed reviews on these two radios here. I'll probably be releasing those in the next few days or so. These are both definitely really good radios. The one on the right is obviously a lot more expensive. It's I think it cost me like $300, but it's worth it if, you know, you need something serious for, you know, an emergency. So it's worth it to invest a little bit of money and have something that's good quality. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed my first prepping basics video, and I'm gonna make a few others soon. I have some good ideas, so I hope you enjoy them. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. God bless.